On this episode of the 5 Things series, I will be talking about the Chicago Bears. Now, I think the number one priority for them should be figuring out the offensive line. For the Bears, I think that for the Bears to develop Fields, I think the best way to do that would be by building an offensive line, even with the Joe Burrow example. For Chicago, that would be number one, re-signing James Daniels to a long-term deal. Next, it would be to add some competition at guard and bring in a tackle. They have Larry Borom, who showed some promise as a rookie, but he simply wasn't good enough to just be handed the job for next season. I think Tevin Jenkins will be a great option if healthy after they trade up for him last year and after I gave him a first-round grade. I'm not exactly sure how to measure offensive line play, but Jason Peters at least had a good PFF grade last season, so he's fine to bring back, but Morgan Moses should be a good option, and Connor Williams is a fine option to add competition at guard. Number two, I think it is to get weapons, because like I said, the number one thing for them to do should be to support Fields. Wide receiving core wasn't off to a great start, but it will be completely barren after they move on from Allen Robinson, essentially being left with Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet. Good players, but obviously not enough. Good news for the Bears is that this is a loaded wide receiver class. With their second or third round pick, I would like them to add the body, maybe take a chance on like a George Pickens, since he could fill in the need as a traditional X-wide receiver at about 6'4", and allow Mooney to play Z or in the slot. Then just sign and draft guys that fill whatever specific roles they need, or they need another deep threat, another in-between guy, etc. Maybe look at MVS and whatever they need for the offense. Just a combination of proven veterans looking for a payday and maybe some swings, or maybe some swings for the fences on guys that still have a lot of potential. Now, number three, I think it is to pick a direction. It's no secret that the Bears weren't good last season after going 6-11, and a lot of the blame can be placed on poor coaching, injury, and poor QB play. All of which should be improved on after a coaching change and expected development from Fields. I see a case for both sides as they have some good veterans like Khalil Mack and Robert Quinn, but they also have some holes in young players. Plus, now is the time to capitalize on Fields' rookie contract. It doesn't make sense to stay in purgatory and go with the flow. Either commit to a rebuild and trade as many of these guys for picks as they can, or bank on Fields to take a leap and surround him with as much talent as possible right now. Which could mean taking a page out of Bill O'Brien's book and maybe trading. I had to maybe trade their second round pick for Calvin Ridley, but that isn't on the table anymore. So I would say look at Brandon Cooks, or maybe go to the Giants and inquire about James Bradbury to add to the cornerback room. This could also mean resigning Akeem Hicks and Bilal Nichols. And I can see why it makes sense for this new regime to start over instead of making risky moves, as that is the easiest way to get fired. But go big or go home, especially if the NFC North is left wide open, with the Lions still stinking, and then with the Vikings issues that they have. Now, number four thing I think would be to address the secondary. Jalen Johnson is good, and Eddie Jackson is fine, even though he hasn't returned the form that he had a few years ago. And Thomas Graham Jr. had a decent rookie season after he was finally able to get on the field. Hopefully, Eberflus helps after he was a defensive coordinator, but they could stand to get better safeties or corners. I mentioned James Bradbury, since there is a chance the Giants could move on. In the draft, maybe look at a Kyrie Elam, a Tariq Woolen in the second round, or not to mention a few of these safeties that I haven't been able to look at much, but obviously there are some good ones. And if they commit to contending, then in free agency they could make a run at it Gilmore. But if they are rebuilding, I would take a chance on a younger guy that was maybe just out of place before, but mainly prioritizing playing time for Thomas Graham Jr. At safety, I would make a run at Jordan Whitehead, a one-year deal at Jabril Peppers, on a prove-it-year deal to after he comes back from injury, or even a higher-name guy depending on how they choose to use cap space. Now, to split up, there's 5A and 5E. For 5A, if they rebuild, I would have them just try to acquire draft capital. I laid it out pretty straightforward if they push in all the chips to contend, but if they rebuild, they need to get as many darts as they can. They already don't have a first-round pick because of the Justin Fields trade, and with a lot of wide receivers available, and unlikely great scenario that a great tackle falls to the second-round pick again, they should trade down. Get another pick for Khalil Mack, maybe throw in a fourth or something to get that up, depending on maybe a Chiefs, on what his market is like with what the Ravens did last season. Same with Robert Quinn, and then expect to suck next year, but then have tons of cap space and a load of young talent for Justin Fields the next season. And then number 6, if they contend, is just to create cap space. The only real way to do this would be to restructure the big contracts of Mack, Jackson, and Quinn, which is doable, in the hope they don't regress, since you are essentially making them movable to move on from down the line, which you do have available if they don't do anything, because of added dead cap money later in the years. So it comes down to how confident they are in Fields that he can take that leap immediately at the end of the day. And that's it. Let me know down in the comments which direction you think the Bears should do and which team I should do next. Peace.
I know I search for perfection, I know I'm far from perfect, but ain't nothing that can stop me, I'm on my grind for certain. Tell me if you're working harder, if you're hardly working.